know there's been a lot more like violence against the Asian American community as of late. Has that something that's hit home for you, and you've like obviously maybe experienced directly, but do you know anybody that's went through that? And is there anything you're trying to do to help kind of mitigate that?
Um, Honestly, I've been pretty fortunate to where I don't think it's affected me directly. That's not to say though that my mom works in education, so they do home deliveries. So she's an aide, so she drops off things for kids in special education, like packets, learning materials, stuff like that. And these are a lot of the kids that she works with are really intellectually disabled. So she has like these pretty like extensive packets that she drops off, and my dad goes with her on every delivery. Like he drives with her because he doesn't want her going alone, just because of the climate that we're in. And not only that, but like my dad also is not. He's pretty Asian looking and he's pretty frail looking now at this point. So like I'm always thinking about them doing that. My mom volunteered at the convention center to help out with the vaccinations, and she parks in the parking lot like across, so she has to get walked back to her car, and I'm like, that worried me because I'm like, well, who's walking in her car? Who's she going with? Stuff like that. I've had to think about that a lot. Like, I'm like, Mom, you're not going to Walmart. Like, you're only going to New Seasons for a while. Like, try to,
It's a
stay
different
away
crowd
from,
at those two places
yeah,
for sure.
stay away from certain areas, certain stores. And I've been lucky enough to where I haven't heard anything, but I've had friends share with me that like, they've gone to stores and they've heard some comments or some remarks, and it's always the girls too that tell me they're hearing it, and it's and like a lot of the attacks are against elders, or like they're going against people who are perceived to be like physically weaker, and I think that's the lowest part. Well, that's actually, I don't know what's the lowest part. There's a lot of low parts, but yeah, it weighs heavy on me just because I think about my family a lot. Like I would I would much rather it happen to me than them. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you, and I definitely empathize with that. I mean, that's like the second I started seeing that stuff, I was like, man, it sucks because like I don't think and I don't want to make it like a well, I mean, this is a race issue, so it is, but it's like I don't think that some people, especially white people, are gonna ever really understand what it's like to walk a mile in some of these people's shoes. Like Malcolm and I are fortunate in certain aspects, and like we have privilege in that, like Malcolm has a brother, and his brother and him look different than each other. And like Malcolm said that to me before, and like when I think about it, I think about like I'm not necessarily worried about me because a cop driving by at a glance might not even recognize me or know, but like I'm worried about like my dad or my aunt or my cousins or my friends that are obviously darker than me and can be very picked out of a crowd easier. And like that's the hard part is like it's not just you worrying about you. It's more so like we're worrying about each other. So when I see my Asian friends, regardless of what type of Asian they are, I'm like concerned because I'm like, man, I hope wherever they're going, there's people they're meeting up with, so they're not by themselves because there's some crazy people out there in this world that they just all they want to do is like cause chaos and inflict violence.